Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. We're back in the new year, and it should be fairly normal from here on out. So let's start as it's gone with Neil before Zod. I kind of like the idea of this. DC have a really good history of putting out 12-issue maxi series, which I really like. I'm going to spend probably a lot of time talking about content on this one rather than just like quality of writing and art and things like that. But I'm not going to ignore those kind of things. I'm going to get straight in with the artwork. It is by, it's McDade. I forgot his first name. I do apologise. Dan McDade, who does a really solid job without really pushing too hard into the really crisp, clean kind of artwork that some of the DC comics do. It is a little bit grungy, but it works quite nicely. The line work is really bold and really strong. I like it. The character designs are phenomenal. The Zod bots, or whatever they're called, are absolutely brilliant looking. What it reminds me of, though, is old school, like Adam Strange, lone science adventure kind of stuff. It feels simple on purpose, and I kind of like that. Also, because it really goes against this idea of the white saviour trope in interesting ways, I feel like that might be on purpose, I don't know, but it certainly works for me. In terms of writing, Joe Casey is good. I don't want to criticise too much, but my final notes are going to be, unfortunately, comparing him to some other writers, and that's not going to come across as, like, 100% favourable. But I want to preface that right now by saying I actually really did enjoy what he did with this, and I think he's got a knack for telling a really cool story and developing characters and setting up threads which will come to pay fruition later on, or at least I hope they will. But all of this is basically leading up to the fact that this is a story about a villain, an unmitigated villain, and this always makes me worry a little bit when I get comics like this, because I think over the past few years there's been some really solid attempts to show empathy for villains. When we look at how they become villains, their life before we knew them as villains, and basically to shine a light on systemic issues and be like, well, what would you do if you were in that kind of situation? It is how we build empathy. There are a few types of villains which don't really get that, though. Joker and Joker-esque kind of things, where it is just forces of chaos and evil. I mean, some people might justify Joker because, you know, as chaos he could be good, he could be bad, but nobody really writes him like that anymore. I don't think there's been a Joker story where we've seen that, like, just side of whimsy and comedy, where he's just, you know, doing things and people trying to stop him, but he's not actually doing any harm. I don't think that's a thing anymore. So he's just, like, a force of chaos and evil, and because he doesn't really have a motivation other than to cause chaos, you can't really look at that as like a way to be empathetic. And the other one is people who have money and power and use that money and power to gain more money and power. This could be through inherited wealth or capitalism or whatever kind of way you look at it, but they're also really hard to be empathetic with because they have more than most every other human being on the planet, and the reason they're bad is because they want more and people keep trying to stop them getting more. And it's very hard to, again, be empathetic with them. I think my favourite example is recently was the last Puss in Boots movie. I just think that was a fantastic bad guy for that, because you could not you couldn't push in his favour. You couldn't think, well, maybe there's a reason. I mean, literally, there's a fantastic bit about baby unicorn horns. It's fantastic. Now, Zod is an evil person, and we get set up very early on exactly what his motivations are and how he's going about it. And basically, he wants power. You already have some. He is a Kryptonian, so they are pretty damn powerful. And how he's getting it is basically colonization and eugenics. You can't really sympathise with that, I'm afraid. You are set up to think this is a bad guy. We get some little ideas of the background of his family life and the fact that he seems to believe that all members of the Zod family deserve what they're getting because they are inherently different and better. And this comes across when you see how he treats his child or his sibling. And it is kind of hard to forgive because what he's doing is just continuing cycles of aggression and abuse, and making sure his son carries on doing it. And this isn't down to, you know, certain bloodlines being inherently a certain way. That's how racism works. This is him basically being told to behave a certain way and being given a justification for it and then carrying on that justification. It is very much nurture, not nature. He is a bad guy for doing this. But, that being said, it'd be very easy to then dismiss this comic like, well, if we can't be sympathetic to him, why should we care? He is a bad guy. Why is he front and centre in it? Because Casey's actually put some little interesting rubs into this mix. There is a council of interplanetary bodies who's keeping an eye on him, and I feel like that could be an interesting look at this idea of right-wingers being like, oh no, I'm just against the government, I'm against the government oversight, which feels like it could be a nice take on it, considering most of them aren't when it comes to over policing and things like that. He's also got, like I say, a son with a second child on the way, and I feel like that, like, generational trauma could be a real interesting thing to get into. Now, the reason why I'm not like 100%, this is fantastic, amazing, I can't wait for more of it, is not down to any real failing in terms of it not being good enough to do exactly what it's wanting to do, which it does really, really well. But I am kind of spoiled with the 12-issue maxi series that DC and Marvel put out. I read quite a lot of them, and I've read some absolutely fantastic ones. And unfortunately, Casey, while being a really solid writer and laying out foreshadowing in real interesting ways, he's setting up story beats, which I really can't wait to see how they play out. He doesn't quite have that knack for dialogue that I look for from like some of the top tier writers. And that's not like a two-bit criticism. There's only room at the top tier for a small handful of people. They're there for a reason. And I think he's clearly aiming for that. And I like that he's aiming for it. And I think it could be great. I'm probably going to wait until it's finished and get the entire 12 issues in one go and see how it actually all plays out. But I'm not like super eager to see what's going to happen exactly next month. But I could be wrong. Could be one of the amazing ones that's going to live on forever. Who knows? That's it for me for now, though. And as I say, we should be getting to a little bit more regular kind of thing. Delivery was a day late, so you'll have one less this week. But next week, everything will be back to normal. Until I see you again, though, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.